So in his darkest, most bitter hour, with all hope of reward gone, Job clings to the one thing he has, his own righteousness. In fact, when all hope of a just reward is gone, then righteousness becomes an intrinsic value. Yechezkel Kaufman writes of this moment, "The poet raises Job to the bleak summit of righteousness, bereft of hope, bereft of faith in divine justice." Or in the words of another scholar, Moshe Greenberg, we see here the sheer heroism of a naked man forsaken by his God and his friends and bereft of a clue to understand his suffering, still maintaining faith in the value of his virtue and in the absolute duty of man to be virtuous. The universe has turned its back on him. We may add he believes God has turned his back on him, yet Job persists in the affirmation of his own worth and the transcendent worth of unrewarded good. So in a way then, for all their differences in style and manner, the patient Job of the legend and the raging Job of the poetic dialogue are basically the same man. Each ultimately remains firm in his moral character, clinging to righteousness because of its intrinsic value and not because it will be rewarded. Indeed, Job knows bitterly that it will not. At the end of his outburst, Job sues God. He issues him a summons, and he demands that God reveal to him the reason for his suffering. Job pronounces a series of curses to clear himself from the accusations against him, specifying the sins he has not committed, and ending, as he began in chapter 3, with a curse on the day of his birth. And we expect to hear from God now, but instead we hear from an unannounced stranger, Elihu. I'm going to have to give Elihu short shrift. He's the only one of the 4 interlocutors to refer to Job by name, address Job by name. He repeats many of the trite assertions of Job's friends. He does hint, however, that not all suffering is punitive. He also hints that contemplation of nature's elements can open the mind to a new awareness of God, and in these 2 respects, Elihu's speech moves us towards God's answer from the storm. So in the climactic moment, God answers Job in an extraordinary theophany or self-manifestation. In chapter 38, God speaks out of the tempest or whirlwind. Who is this who darkens counsel, speaking without knowledge? Is he referring to Job, to Elihu, the 3 friends, all of them? God has heard enough. It's his turn to ask questions, the answers to which are clearly implied. These are rhetorical questions. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Speak if you have understanding. Do you know who fixed its dimensions or who measured it with a line? You did, God. Have you ever commanded the day to break, assigned the dawn its place? Have you penetrated to the sources of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep? No, no human has. And God continues with these rhetorical questions regarding the animals, their various powers and attributes. But one wonders what the purpose of all these questions is. One senses that they are irrelevant. Job has posed some very specific challenges to God. Why am I suffering? Is there a pattern to existence? Is God's refusal to answer these challenges a way of saying there is no answer? Or is it God's way of saying that justice is beyond human understanding? Or is this theophany of God in nature, and the focus on creation, an implicit assault on the fundamental tenet of Israelite religion that God is known and made manifest through his interactions with humans, his rewards and punishments in historical time?